What is going on, guys? Welcome to Greggles TV. This video is going to be a comparison of the Galaxy Z Fold 3 versus the iPad mini. This is the newest iPad mini. I wanted to compare these because someone in my audience was like, hey, you should compare those. And I can't remember your name, so sorry about that. But I thought it'd be a cool comparison because you have a big sized screen on this Galaxy Z Fold 3 7.6 versus the 8.3 inch iPad mini. Now, I basically go through everything that you'd want to see on these devices. I don't have the Apple Pencil, so I was unable to compare the S Pen with this versus that. So unfortunately, that's really the only thing I didn't really do. With that said, let's jump into the video. All right, guys, so here we go. We got the Galaxy Z Fold 3 here. We have the iPad mini 6th generation. This is just the Wi-Fi version, but you can get it in 5G if you wanted to compete a little bit more so with this, because this is an interesting test. I mean, you got a folding phone, but this is Samsung's largest phone, and then you have the iPad mini, which is the smallest iPad, but really, really close in size. So you get a 7.6 inch display here on the Z Fold 3 and an 8.3 inch display on the iPad mini. Now, one thing to keep in mind is this obviously can close, and you can use this front display if you want. You can't obviously fold this, even though I keep thinking I'm gonna fold it just because it's kind of similarly sized. And I have thrown, one of the cool things is I actually have thrown a pop socket on the back of this. So if you're curious if a pop socket actually fits on this, it actually does. And it feels perfectly in there. And it's, I'm glad I threw one on there. So let's get back to this. We'll check all the speakers and the screens and everything. So speaking of the screens, let's do that first. So these displays have drastically different displays. You have an AMOLED display on the Galaxy Z Fold 3 and a higher brightness as well. Like the nits and brightness is definitely much higher. This display, without a doubt, looks so much better than this iPad one. You might not be able to tell on this video, but if you see these in real life, you will notice a huge difference. Basically all the devices I have are AMOLED displays. Happen to be, when I had tablets that were Samsungs, I usually get Samsung phones. Most of the Android phones have AMOLED displays. So like they have these rich, deep, inky colors. And then you go over to something like this, which has an LCD display, and the colors seem grainy. The display looks kind of grainy. Don't get me wrong, it's still a good display, but when you get used to these AMOLED displays, it just looks kind of janky and not that impressive. So without a doubt, I'd give the look of the display to the Z Fold 3. And I don't even know if you can tell, and you might not be able to, but like just looking at my logo there, the dog, the green is just so much more vibrant on the Z Fold 3 versus the iPad mini. All right, so I have these both playing in 4K, and it'll probably be difficult to tell, but if you saw these in person, I would be highly shocked if you didn't choose the Galaxy Z Fold 3 on the side here. But just to see, you do get a nice full display on here. It doesn't let you pinch in. You can pinch in and see the whole thing on here. It cuts off the sides, but it basically fills in the whole display on here for the most part when you're watching this. There's a little bit of black part up there just because I didn't make the video that full, but it will fill up the whole. If the video's completely full, it will fill it up. So it really depends on what you like. But ultimately, the aspect ratios of both, they both look really, really good on the display. It would have been nice to completely fill the screen up on the iPad. Unfortunately, you can't, but you can, like I said, with the Z Fold 3. This is the Android Police website. I'm using Chrome on both browsers just so you can get an idea of what these look like when you pull something up on here. So where's that Google thing? There we go. Google Me. Here we go. Put them both at the same level, basically. So you can see what the websites look like. Both of them look fantastic. You can see a little bit more with the iPad mini. I'll open up the article. Open up the article. And both are just great to hold in one hand, especially if you have a little pop socket. You don't need a pop socket on both, but it just makes things holding it a little bit easier. But you can see both of them look really, really nice on here if you want to read articles or whatever. You'll be very, very happy with both. I'll pull up the picture on both of these the same, pretty much. Here's a photo of my son on both here. And I'll zoom in to fill up the whole screen and pull it down just a little bit here. And you look like, actually, I don't even have to do that. I can see more on the iPad mini because of the bigger display. You can see, obviously, you see his feet and his head still in it. So you can see the whole photo even by zooming in. Another thing to know is that the iPad mini has a 60 hertz refresh rate, so you won't get as smooth scrolling on there as you will with the Galaxy Z Fold 3. So if you need that ultra smooth scrolling on here, you're still pretty smooth on the iPad, but you'll just notice a little bit more smoothness with the Z Fold 3. So again, it would have been nice if they threw that in there. It's one of the other things I probably wish they had thrown in there, is not only an AMOLED display, but also the just smoother, higher refresh rate as well. Next, let's check out the design. You see the camera at the top, and you do have a black bezel that goes around. It's quite sizable too, but I don't know if that's so bad with a tablet, because you do hold the edges, you do hold it. So you might want a little bit of a bezel on there. You do get nothing on the right here, so you don't get any power buttons or anything like that. At the bottom, you get your speakers and a lightning, actually USB-C charging, so they both use USB-C charging. Left side, nothing. At the top, that's where you get, obviously you get speaker holes too, but basically you do get stereo speakers on here, you don't get quad speakers. You get your volume keys at the top, and then your fingerprint sensor at the top right, whereas with the Galaxy Z Fold 3, you get your volume buttons on the left and the right, your power button, which also doubles as a fingerprint sensor, your speaker and your USB-C charging, nothing on the left. And then at the top, again, another speaker, some microphones, stuff like that. Here's the back of these devices. With the Z Fold 3, you obviously get 3 cameras, whereas you only get 1 with the iPad mini. But I will say, and I'll show you in a little bit, camera tests come up pretty close, so closer than I thought. And obviously the Z Fold 3, like I mentioned earlier, does fold, so you can fold it if you want. The iPad doesn't, so it would have been cool again if it had something like that, but just obviously it's a design thing. Fingerprint sensor for both of these is really, really good. Now, I do prefer it on the Z Fold 3 just because of the position that it's at. I think it's a more natural position, having it be on the side, because your hand is just naturally there. Whereas with the iPad, you have to physically go up there in order to use it. But it does work really, really well when you're using it. You can see, and it also gives you a little saying rest to open, so it tells you where to do it. One of the things I do like about it is when you're holding it, it's good to add multiple fingers. You can use it when you're in this orientation. It's easy to use it this way as well. That way you can, use this finger instead of having to reach over with the other finger. So they both work really, really well, but position-wise, I do prefer it on the Z Fold 3. Now let's check out some music, just so you can hear the speakers. I'm gonna turn the volume all the way up on the iPad. All right, iPad's all the way up, and then we'll make sure it's all the way up on the Z Fold 3. All right, all the way up. All right. I don't know, it's pretty close off that try. Let's try another song. I would say the volumes are pretty close, just listening to it on a raw air test, but the iPad mini does sound bassier and a little bit more sophisticated. This Z Fold 3 sounds a little bit more tinnier. Yeah, the Z Fold 3 is definitely a brighter sound. They're both clear. It's really preference of what you prefer. It's tough to choose, but I guess if I had to choose, I do like a little bit more of a bassier sound, so I probably would choose the iPad mini. Next, let's talk about performance. Both of these perform really well. You got a Snapdragon 888, which is basically top of the line on the Android side, and then you have the A15, which is more or less, at least in their mobile devices, their highest performing processor. So the iPad mini had a score of 1590 and 4535, and the Z Fold 3 had 871 and 3102. So the iPad mini, obviously, just on a benchmark test, which doesn't tell the whole story, performed much better. Not completely fair, and again, that doesn't mean that this phone is slow. It just means that this obviously just performed better in this benchmark test. Let's open up a few apps on here. So we'll go up to Instagram and open both of these at the same time. And as you can see, Z Fold 3 opened up that faster. We'll do Twitter next. And again, Z Fold 3 won. So even though you're getting, faster performance on those benchmark tests, again, it doesn't tell the whole story. I'm gonna open up my Wise cameras. 1, 2, 3. We'll open up these cameras. And it looks like the iPad mini won that one. Here we go with the Eufy. Oh, took a second. But actually the iPad still beat it, even though I opened it up later. So as you can see, just opening up apps, it seems most of the time the Z Fold 3 is faster, but in some occasions the iPad mini is. But then in the benchmarks, iPad mini completely destroys it. But again, both of them are super fast. Showing the basics of using the phone. So if you swipe down, you'll get your notifications on the iPad mini, so you can see all your notifications. Same thing with Z Fold 3 if you have any notifications. You also get your quick toggles right here with your Z Fold 3 or your Android phone. Whereas if you want to do that on the iPad side, you swipe down from the right, and that's where you see your quick toggles. And you can customize these as well in your settings. For me, I'm used to the Android side. I prefer that more, but if you use the iPad's not bad. It's just a different way to do it. This is settings on both of the devices. I prefer the Android settings. I think they're a little bit easier to navigate. The search seems to bring up more information versus the Apple side, but I mean, again, it's more preference than anything. I just think the Apple side's a little bit too, stuff is just everywhere. It just seems a little bit more messy, and I like the way Android does it. So for me, the settings and the software, especially, even though you can customize the Apple side more so than you ever could, it's just easier to do it with the Galaxy Z Fold 3. You can easily just go in here and download a bunch of themes if you want for free, customize your phone. But I wouldn't say it's definitely not as easy and as rich as the Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 3 side. You also have widgets. You have widgets over here too if you want to add them. So again, they're getting closer in terms of customization, but the Galaxy Z Fold 3 definitely has it easier. Swiping over, you'll see your Google feed. Then over here, you kind of have like an Apple feed, but it almost sits on top of the display. I do like the Google feed better. It's its own separate little thing, whereas here you can add like widgets if you want, or read your news. You can kind of customize the way you want it, whereas this is just kind of news and searching for stuff. If you want to multitask on the iPad, all you're going to do is, let's open up a browser here, swipe up ever so slightly, and we'll bring over YouTube. And now I have two windows, and you can resize these very easily. Obviously, you can place it like this if you wanted to. That way you could watch a video on one side. Turn this down. What is going on, guys? And do a website on the other. So it's very easy, very smooth. Not all apps seem to work. You can also have floating windows, but this is an easy implementation to run multiple windows. just as easy as on the Z Fold 3. Z Fold 3, you can actually save them, and like right here, I have a couple saved. If I wanted to do like YouTube, Twitter, and my YouTube, I can do that. I can even add a third window in here to sit. So I'll just hold that. I can pull it down here. And then I can even open up 5 more floating windows on here if need be as well. You just drag it to the middle here, and I've got a floating window. I can drag it down here. So multitasking, I feel like, is easier on the Z Fold 3. But with that said, let's just open it up. You know, when we just look at these side by side in terms of, you know, what you can see, which one do you like better? It's really a preference. The Z Fold 3 seems to have it nice and a little bit fatter, a little bit easier to see on there. But ultimately, it's, you know, neither of them is that bad. But I guess I'd have to say multitasking software. Me personally, it's a personal thing. I prefer the Z Fold 3, but iPad, I can see why people would absolutely love this as well. Next, let's check out the cameras. Obviously, it's not a completely fair test because the Z Fold 3 has a camera on here, a camera here, 3 on the back. But I'll take some photos with both of these phones and a couple of videos, and we will check out, you know, what it looks like on both of these. And I think, you know, just off preliminary results, I think you'd be a little bit surprised of how well the iPad mini actually performs. I'm recording this with the front camera, like that front display on the Galaxy Z Fold 3, 4K, 30 frames per second, so it matches up with the iPhone. This is how this one sounds. Now let me switch over to the iPhone front camera. All right, guys, this is the camera on the iPad mini. I think I said iPhone just a second ago, but I meant iPad mini. Obviously, this is the 6th generation. How do you think it looks and sounds and compares to the Galaxy Z Fold 3? And then here we go with the back camera on the iPad mini 6th generation. How does this look and sound compared to the Galaxy Z Fold 3? And remember, the Galaxy Z Fold 3 is basically like 3 times the price of what this is. And then finally, here is the Galaxy Z Fold 3. How does this one look and sound compared to that iPad mini? I mean, it's pretty crazy, like how just looking at these on their screens, maybe there's a big difference on the computer, but the iPad mini really seems to hold up to the Z Fold 3. I'll definitely let you know at the end of this little camera test which one I think looks better, but ultimately it seems pretty close. So when it comes down to it, one of these is actually a tablet, one of these is a phone, so it's not a completely fair fight. But, you know, minus making phone calls, which you still could do with an iPad mini if you get like a Google Voice number or something, but ultimately, you can get this in 5G and do basically everything that you would want to on this, like you could this, and you get 256 gigs of storage up to if you want to with this, and it costs you $799, and that's with 5G. This phone, you know, you can get some trade-ins. Obviously, you can get trade-ins with both, but ultimately, you buy this retail price, it's like $1,800, and that's for the 256. So it's crazy to think that like these devices are completely the same in some regards. In terms of size, they're really close. In terms of just overall use case, because, you know, they have these huge displays, but this one is literally $1,100 cheaper. It doesn't fold, but theoretically you could still put it in your skateboarding jeans if you had some big pockets, or, you know, decent sized pockets. And this one obviously folds, so it's definitely a lot easier and more pocketable. This has wireless charging. This doesn't. You know, there's pluses and minuses to go there, but just on a basic level of using these devices, they're fairly close, and close enough to where, you know, you might think about getting this over this, but ultimately they both outperform each other in different areas and categories. And I did say that earlier in the video, but I don't think you could be happy with both of these devices, or either one of these devices. They both are fantastic. For me, if I had to choose one of these, I would still choose the Z Fold 3 because it's a phone, it gets smaller, it runs Android, but this is still fantastic. You know, if this had an AMOLED display and maybe a higher refresh rate, I would be absolutely thrilled with this. I'm still pretty happy with it because it does everything really, really well. But yeah, that's probably it. Let me know what you guys think about these devices. If you want to pick up either of these, I'll link them down below. Thanks for watching. We'll see you down the road. Peace.